Hey cousins, I'm Shemaya. It's like papaya, except it's not, and this is Plot Twist Please. Let's get into it. Your fingers anxiously fidget with your pleated skirt, probably leaving wrinkles in the fabric. You lift your sweaty palms toward the sky and clench your hands into two fists for a high V. You prep, jump, launching your body in the air. A perfect toe touch. The echo of cheers bouncing off the walls. A thump of a mat. You stuck the landing. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the Bring It On franchise. And as a former competitive cheerleader, yes, go Wolves, go Wolves. You know, the garb is giving off athleticism. If you know Bring It On, then you know that franchise is ripe with material. Now, if you don't know of Bring It On, nope, not that one either. Now we're just being mean. The OG Bring It On. Come on, people. If you know of that cinematic masterpiece, she says completely serious, no longer able to hide her obnoxious liberal arts degree, then you know that it is truly the gift that keeps on giving. Every Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa. Gifts galore. I mean, the wrapping paper is all over my apartment. Now, if you don't know, you normies, Bring It On. Just kidding. Empathy over here. If you don't know, Bring It On is a 2000s teen comedy written by Peyton Reed and directed by Jessica Bendinger. I think I'm saying their names right. The film stars Kirsten Dunst, Gabrielle Union, and lots of other faves from that era. The film centers around two high school cheerleading teams as they prepare for a national competition. And now, listen, as a former cheerleader, I can say we lost our minds. When it was time to compete and potentially go to nationals, we were not okay. Like, we just weren't. There was glitter, hairspray, so many protein shakes, y'all. Because whether we wanted to be cheerleaders for the rest of our lives or not, this was the time to really stick our elbows into it. Is that a phrase? Stick our elbows into it? Put some elbow grease in it? Put our feet in it? What is the phrase? Let me know in the comments. Now, with this rich piece of cinema, I could talk about cultural appropriation, class divides, or even the complexities of relationships, but I am going to talk about something that, among the Bring It On franchise, among the discourse, the community, I haven't seen anyone talk about. No, I'm not going to talk about how Gabrielle Union's face card has never declined, will never decline. As worthy of a discussion as that is, that's not what we're talking about today, because we have bigger fish to fry. Today, we are talking about our main character, Torrance, because I think Torrance has a lot to teach us. And as neurodivergent, I think we have a lot to learn as we interact with other people, on this floating rock. Because there's really, no getting past it. Other people are here and we're going to have to interact with them. So might as well talk about how to do that well. So let's talk about how Tori from Bring It On's people-pleasing tendencies make her an unlikely and yet perfect villain. Shall we? Oh yeah, I didn't stutter. She's both a protagonist and a villain. But before we do that, this is Plot Twist Please, a place where I like to talk about movies and mental health. A sensitive neurodivergent glow-up guide of sorts. If you like my words, subscribe to the channel. If you like my face, like this video. If you hate my face but like my words, follow the podcast on the other platforms. And if you hate both my words and my face, comment below. I want to know why you feel this way. I want to pick your brain. Make your argument. Go ahead. Cited sources, please. We love a healthy discourse over here. Now for the main course. We need to talk about Tori. Side note, did anyone else used to think that her character was named Tori because it sounded like Toros, which is the name of the team that she's on? Like almost as if it was derived from that cheer squad, the Toros, that it was almost an allegory for her personhood at the beginning of the movie being completely derived from and influenced by the team she represents. Almost to the point that she's not even an individual at the start of her character arc, but a mere cog in an all-American idealized kind of wheel, kind of machine. Almost as if she was incubated and raised by these specific principles. I'm probably not the only one who thought that, right? Anywho, some backstory, because we need to preface some things. Cheerleader Torrance Shipman, full government name, is a senior at a high school in San Diego. Her boyfriend, Aaron, is at college at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and her cheerleading squad, the Toros, is aiming for their 6th consecutive national title. Thanks, Wikipedia. Torrance is elected the next team captain at the start of the movie, and she's really grappling with the anxieties that she has as a new team leader, or as a new squad leader. She's replacing Big Red, who really is the epitome of mother. Like, if there's anyone who gave mother, it's Big Red. And now it's like she has these really big shoes to fill. So a lot happens in this movie. I'm not going to get into the details that don't really apply to us. I'm just going to talk about the things that do. So right when Torrance, aka Tori, takes over, things start to drastically fall apart. First of all, one of the squad members gets injured because, cheerleading is dangerous because it is a competitive sport that you could literally become unalive doing. Like, I got a broken nose. That was the worst of it for me, but I've seen broken limbs. Like, I've seen it all. During the first practice, mind you, not even the second practice, the first practice, someone gets injured. Bad luck, huh? So, because of this injury, Tori then holds auditions for a replacement and gains Missy Pantone. Okay, last name being something that I would use to redecorate my home. Anyway, Missy has an outstanding audition and gets on the team. During the first rehearsal that she's attending, though, she notices that the routine she's learning looks awfully familiar. Basically, a bunch of stuff happens, and she ends up bringing Tori, the squad captain, to a neighboring high school where the Clovers, another squad, predominantly Black, is doing the exact same routine. And that is the moment where Tori learns, Raggy, Big Red has been stealing the routines for years. She's been stealing it from this one group in particular, this predominantly Black group. And as you can probably tell, the optics are bad because you have a really wealthy, white school, and then they're stealing from a predominantly Black school, and it's just not. It's giving big flop-roni. It's so unbecoming, I'd say. What is her PR team doing? Where's the management? What's going on? So it's bad. But I would argue that this is when Tori's facade of what her life is and who she is in the story of her life falls apart. Because think about it, Tori is a classic cheerleader in a Western culture sense. By Western culture, I'm mostly talking about American culture because that's really my only frame of reference. Tori is, branding wise, an all-American upper middle class beauty representing wholesomeness, positivity, and peak femininity, which is, the all-American white cheerleader. And that's an important set of characteristics, as you will soon see. Tori is also a chronic people pleaser. And this is a character flaw that plagues her decision making, prompting her to do things like act out of white guilt. Some would argue that some of the things that she does throughout the film is a reflection of her trying to make herself feel better. She centers herself when it comes to harm that she causes or cosigns. She ends up cheating, I guess borderline cheating or completely cheating on her boyfriend, even though he's bad. He's bad. He's gross. Yuck. But cheating nonetheless. And lastly, she suffers from extreme pressures that she puts on herself because she wants to be the quote unquote perfect example of a cheerleader. Frankly, I don't hate Tori. I in fact see a lot of myself in her, but I can't deny that people pleasing leads to much of her character's issues. So, what is people pleasing? What is this buzzword? That's what I'd like to break down first in regards to the neurodivergent experience. Let's start with how people pleasing comes to be. Now, it's argued among experts that people pleasing can come from a lot of different factors. And many of those factors involving power imbalances. A lot of the time, people pleasing starts with parent pleasing. A parent or guardian having specific standards for you or expectations of you. Sometimes they seem like they're standards that are impossible to meet or extremely difficult to meet, but you work for most of your life trying to appease that parent or trying to make them proud because that's all you know. I understand that for a lot of autistic people in particular, I'm autistic myself, but for a lot of us, that can come in the form of masking. For me, I honestly feel like I had to teach myself to unmask. It was a conscious thing I had to teach myself to do because it's so automatic now. And that's not necessarily because of me trying to please my parents. It's for me, it's a reflection of feeling the need to appease the people around me in general. When you're young and you're neurodivergent and you do things that you later understand to be not behavior that society accepts, then You change that behavior because you want to make friends, because you want to make friends, or you want to be in a romantic relationship, or you don't want people to dislike you when you're in the room, or when you enter the room. Like you don't want people to, you don't want to kind of ward anyone off. And eventually you learn that the right people will like flock to you, that your people won't shut you out or make you feel gross and weird for doing things that to you are just different ways of doing things. You know, when you meet people who don't treat you like an alien, you just come to learn that those kinds of people, not that they're bad people, but they're just not your people. And that's okay. You didn't fail because you can't make someone your people. In fact, I'd argue you can't make someone a person for you. You can't make people your people. Like you get it. You get it. You get it. You're smart. You get it. But I think it takes a long time to learn that. It takes an uncomfortably long time to learn. And for me, that didn't come from parent pleasing, but I think for a lot of autistic people, it does, because I think a lot of parents of autistic children put this enormous pressure on themselves to raise a quote normal child, when it's like, no, your child is not going to be normal. They're not. And you trying to convince them that being normal validates them as a human is problematic and dangerous, because at the end of the day, they will never be that. They just will never be that. The second kind of situation that I think, within the umbrella of power imbalances that yields a people pleaser in adulthood is an abuse victim. Now, this is trigger warning, abuse. Now, if you remember that not too long ago, there was this huge debate on TikTok. I don't know if you're down with the TikTok discourse or whatever, but there was a huge argument about people pleasing because someone, notably several people, started talking about how people pleasing is manipulation. And I understand that in the sense that manipulation by textbook definition is trying to get someone to do something, right? But with that broad definition, almost anything can be categorized as manipulation, I would argue, right? That's my argument. That's what I say, is so many things can be categorized as manipulation, but it doesn't mean that these people have nefarious intentions or intrinsically evil motives. Like I just think that we oversimplify things sometimes. Not to mention that there are different types of people pleasers. That's the thing. I will say, people on the internet tend to pick one type of behavior that they dislike, and mind you, the behavior rather than the full scope of the person's experience who is displaying that behavior, and they like to pathologize it. It's like the thing that happened with the word pick me. A pick me used to mean one thing, and it was just super specific. A pick me is someone who puts other women down in order to gain the approval of a man, or the partnership of a man, or the potential partnership of a man. And now that definition too has expanded to mean like any behavior you dislike. And it's like, wait a minute, are they a pick me or do you just not like them? Like, can we just be honest? It's okay to not like people. It's okay. Like, again, I've said this before, but can we normalize people not being your cup of tea? Can we normalize that? Because everything does not have to be linked to a pathology. Everything doesn't have to be linked to this very specific type of person does this very specific thing. Maybe people are layered. Maybe these situations are nuanced, and everyone can't be boiled down to one type of person. I'm sorry. People are layered. I don't know how to tell you that. But yeah, I think a similar thing is happening with the word people pleaser, because now we're just saying, oh, everything is people pleasing. Just like everything now is pick me behavior. But yeah, so I do think a similar thing is happening with the word, or with the term people pleaser. If you genuinely want your friends to be happy and so you accommodate them in some way, you're a people pleaser, therefore you're a manipulator. And it's like, wait, hold on. But yeah, that's what I think. No. I don't think that. I know that. Why do I know that, you ask? It's because I'm smart. The last thing that I think is, the inception of the people pleaser is the savior or martyr complex. That to me is a way of thinking where someone thinks that it is their sole job to save the people around them. It is their job to make sure they all get what they need, to make sure they are living their fullest, best lives. And listen, that's a good friend to have, but you as a person cannot sustain that. You can't sustain putting everyone else's feelings onto you and carrying that. Like, you have your own feelings. Your brain is already busy. Like, your nerve endings are already occupied. You don't need to attach yourself to everyone else's. Like, it's a lot to try to keep in control, if you ask me. So all of these kinds of like roads to people pleasing, they tend to manifest themselves as the following: compliance, caretaking, conflict avoidance, active pleasing, merging, yada, yada, yada. A bunch of stuff that just like really does, it's going to give you wrinkles. It's going to give you wrinkles. Why do I sound like someone's like aunt from New York? Just to highlight a few kinds of people pleasers to like prove my point here. There's a chameleon who finds it hard to fit in, and so they're inauthentic and end up losing themselves in the process and can't even detect when they're pretending. There's a busy bee who's constantly working, highly prone to stress. There is the perfectionist who has a fear of rejection or shame. Tori, I'm looking at you. So I've laid out these different ways that people pleasing can manifest itself to illustrate how it's not such cut and dry manipulation. Now, lastly, I want to talk about the misconceptions that I, as an autistic person, want to debunk about people pleasing. All right, strap in. One misconception I find is that people pleasing is rooted in selfishness. Okay, let me tell you something about autistic survival, right? When you're a wee little tot and someone shows you that the way that you are is wrong, like in subtle ways, because kids are smart and they pick up on this stuff. I know because I've worked for kids, tiny kids, like 3 years old. They know when they're doing something that isn't socially accepted because, you know, people will look at them funny. They can tell. Autistic kids trying to like not be bullied in school and autistic adults trying to keep their jobs are byproducts of a culture of people pleasing. And I don't blame us as individuals for quote unquote people pleasing in order to survive, because what we gonna do? Not eat. We gonna not have a place to live. And as I age and become more mature, I hope I'm learning more and more how to strike a balance between doing the things we have to do to survive, like playing the politeness game in order to like be able to pay rent, and also knowing my limits as a laborer, and knowing my rights as a laborer, and knowing how important it is for me to listen to my body whilst I'm going about my daily life. Because as much as it is expected for you to extend yourself, especially as a black woman, they want us to work to the bone. But yeah, you do really just have to know when enough is enough, and you have to know how to do that, how to go about pouring ease into your life, putting more rest into your life strategically. But that's the thing, strategically. But yes, I do think that autistic people doing things and seeming overly cautious or seeming like guarded or seeming overly polite or overly accommodating is a like side effect of having to live in society. Like, yes, maybe you are too nice. Maybe it's because if you weren't nice, you would get fired, or people wouldn't want to be friends with you, or you would get demoted, or people would deem you as rude or unfriendly or cold, especially if you're a person of color. Another misconception I'd like to point to is the one that people pleasing protects you from shame. Now, granted, it seems like it would, like it's deceptive that way. People pleasing makes you feel like you're safe, but it can cause immense shame. I think back at the things that I let people say to me, the ways I let people treat me, and I feel shame. I feel disgusted. I feel like I'm learning to give myself grace and all that, but it's hard. It's a hard thing to face, to know that you let someone talk to you that way, to know that you let someone treat you that way for extended periods of time. Also, it can be shameful to know that I allowed myself to be influenced to the degree that I would wear my eyeliner halfway up my eyelid. That's embarrassing. And I'm not being overdramatic when I say that I'd rather sit naked on a hot grill than to wear eyeliner all the way up to the crease again. Never again. We shan't go back. I'd also argue in reference to Tori, the person we're focusing on, and I hope I've talked about her enough for her to still be relevant in this episode, but I think that shame actually helped Tori grow. I don't think that it is something that we should deem as completely worthless or harmful, I think that shame can be targeted toward good. If someone harms someone else in a community, I think a healthy level of shame is required. And not shame in the sense of saying that they're terrible and will never grow and that they deserve awful things to happen to them. Like not that, but a kind of shame where it is, and maybe the word I'm looking for isn't shame. Maybe the word I'm looking for is accountability. But some sort of feeling that you get where you realize that you've done something harmful and that feeling inspires you to change or inspires you to go about what you did a different way. That is the kind of shame I'm talking about. I'm not talking about making someone regret being alive. I'm talking about the kind of shame that says to someone, you could have done that better. Like you hurt someone. You hurt someone and you have to sit with the fact that you hurt someone. I think that's how we grow. I don't believe you can pass that part. I don't believe that you can ignore that part, that you can omit that part and still change. I don't think it happens that way. I do think it's a misconception that people pleasing keeps you from feeling shame, because you might very well feel shame for people pleasing. But I also am not certain that that is a bad thing. In healthy doses, because you know balance. We like balance over here. Lastly, I would like to address the misconception that people pleasing is harmless. Not only in Tori's case did her people pleasing cause harm, did the people pleasing of the people around her cause harm to the Black community, especially the Clovers, that team they stole from. But I also think that her people pleasing tendencies co-signed harm that others were participating in. You know, when you try so hard to conform and to fit into a group, you sacrifice some things. You sacrifice some things when you choose to be part of certain communities. Like you sacrifice other people sometimes even. You sacrifice the outlier because you want to fit in. You co-sign their harm because it's uncomfortable to speak up. It's uncomfortable to stand up for somebody, especially when the easier choice is to people please. But I do think that we are grown. I think that most of the people listening to this are grown. And I think that we can acknowledge that we are at a point where we can make our own decisions, where we can hold our friends, hold our communities, the people within our communities to task when they do something that harms someone else or when they do something that ostracizes someone else. And I think that Tori gets a start of doing that when she lets Missy, who I would say is a misfit, she is an unlikely choice to join the squad, but Tori stands up for her. And I think that might be her first leg into growth. Like that might be the first step that she takes, going against the grain, welcoming someone to the squad who everybody else thinks is so ill-fitting, even though she's talented, arguably more talented than anyone else who auditioned. I think these are signs of her promise as a character. These are signs of her potential. And I think that we all have that potential as well. We have the potential to do the brave thing. We have the potential to speak our truth, to be honest with people when they harm us, because we would want them to be honest with us. We have the power to advocate for ourselves and advocate for the people around us. And I think we should use it more. That's all. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to share, subscribe this video, this channel, share this episode, subscribe to this channel. You get it. You've gotten it a long time ago. Anyway, that's all. Be blessed. Stay weird. Bye-bye.